Does it feel like it's being set up for the third time? Does it feel like
legally speaking, it has been?
Yeah.
It's possibly been the worst possible time I could have reopened a business.
Welcome to Finding My User Manual, the podcast about learning to be human when no one gave you the instructions. My name is Tiggs Rice. I'm an empowerment photographer based in London, UK. And today I am thrilled to announce that our guest is Karolina Laskowska. Hello.
Hello, it's lovely to be here.
Oh, I'm thrilled that you're here. I'm just happy to even be in the same room as you because for the last 8 years-ish, well, give or take a couple of months that you've been back, we have had to do all of our talking via online communication. It's
not the same, is it?
No. And of course, we have spent some time together in the same room doing shoots and all kinds of creative things over the last couple of months now. But it is such a joy to have you here, and I cannot wait to delve into that journey. I'm going to give you a big old empowering introduction for those who have not met you yet. So, Karolina Laskowska is an award-winning couture lingerie designer who has been running her eponymous brand single-handedly for 14 years, designing, pattern cutting, constructing, and managing every aspect of her business with extraordinary precision. Her work is known for its intricate craftsmanship, historical references, and sustainable practices as much as for its beauty and, most often, sparkle. Blending fine art influences with technical mastery, Karolina creates pieces that feel as much like collectible objects as they do garments, challenging perceptions of what lingerie can be and even who it's for. A passionate researcher and advocate for fashion history, Karolina is also the director and co-founder of the Underpinnings Museum, a digital archive dedicated to documenting and celebrating the history of underwear. Through exhibitions, educational projects, and collaborations, she and the museum team help preserve the stories of garments that have shaped culture from beneath the surface. Alongside her couture practice and museum work, Karolina lectures, writes, and speaks about lingerie history, ethical production, and the politics of intimate dress in a way that is so accessible, I refuse to ever skip an article. It is a privilege to have you here with us today.
You said too many nice things about me and I'm struggling to process.
Oh, well, I'm all about the ego boost over here, and you deserve every single word of it.
Thank you.
I had been a fan of your work even before I got to meet you in person, because your lingerie collection, for those of you who are out there who know my obsession with everything Japanese, there was a lot of kimono and vintage kimono silk in a lot of your early work. So you had me hooked before you even graduated, and here we are now 14 years later. How has that journey been for you?
Long. A lot of ups and downs. Yeah. I don't think any of us can really predict where our life is going to go. But yeah, mine definitely took some detours to what I would have expected back when we first met.
Well, let me ask you the really important question, and then we'll get right into how that journey has been for you. If you came with a user manual, what do you think it would say on page 1?
I don't know, because I feel like right now I am rewriting my user manual. I feel like because of the events of, well, essentially last year, I've had to start my life again from scratch, and part of that process has been kind of rediscovering my sense of self and who I am and what I want out of this life and what this life can be. And I've still not pinned it all down, but I'm getting closer, and I've never been one to write things from the beginning, from the first page. I'll meander all over the place and eventually it will come together.
I love that we're basically rewriting, at least this is at least version 2.0 of your user manual, really, isn't it? And I completely get that as well, because I would also be the person that probably started from the back and worked my way up to the contents page almost. But yeah, it's been a big old journey for you. Like, where would you like to start? Where feels like a good place for you to start this?
Oh goodness, I'm not sure.
maybe the move to Norway.
Yeah.
So for context, this was 2017?
Yes.
Yeah,
Late
2017.
2017.
Yeah. So tell me about 2017 for you.
So the year I was in a relationship with a Norwegian man who I had met in London, but he ended up moving back and we were long distance for a while. And then the Brexit vote happened and we both knew that meant it would be very, very difficult for him to come back. So we sat down, we looked at this practically, and we decided the best option was for me to try moving there. And this wasn't like a hard and fast, this is going to be the rest of life. It was we're going to try this and see how it goes. So for most of 2017, I was in the process of what I thought would be my final ever lingerie collection, that I would close my brand down.
Yes.
And then I would move over there and I would find a regular day job, and that would be that.
Yes. Do you know what? I'd forgotten that actually. I do, now you mention it. We've already discussed today that my memory of 2017 seems to be incredibly hazy. But actually, now you mention it, it was very much, I'm going to close down my brand and I'm going to go and find something else over there. What was the move like for you? Because, I mean, your lingerie brand was already so established.
Yeah, because I founded it during my studies, not entirely intentionally, but that's how it worked out. It was difficult. It was a heavy thing to kind of, at the time, I thought I was closing the chapter on it permanently. And there was a lot of what could have been hanging over me. You know, I felt that I hadn't done everything I'd wanted to do in the industry. I hadn't reached my full potential. And I was a bit frustrated by that. And again, the loss of all that potential. But I tried to make peace with it and tried to I was very excited and optimistic about, you know, moving over there and starting a new life. I was really excited and optimistic about living with my ex-partner, and about all the possibilities there. And it did not work out as I expected.
I think there is so much romanticism that goes on with this idea of moving somewhere new, especially somewhere, we're not even talking like moving a couple of hours away from the area and the people that you know, your social circles, your support networks. It sounds so great in practice, and I'm sure there are people out there that have had incredible experiences, but I mean, what are the key things, you know, when you're moving to a different country, what was that like, even at a time at that point where you were, as you said, full of optimism, and like how was that?
It was really hard because I think some of the things that I didn't really expect, the first one was, it's such a huge cultural divide. And I know that can be kind of difficult to fathom, like, you know, two Northern European countries, they can't be that different. They are. And I personally found, I know some Norwegian people will disagree with me on this, but that it's a very closed off culture. If you don't have an in, if you don't already know the people, you're not going to get in. They will not let you in. And that's kind of very much the case professionally, it's quite the case socially. And that can make it a very, very isolating experience. And, you know, even with things like once you've picked up the language, it can help, but it doesn't completely bridge that divide.
Because you leaned in on the language, like you.
I mean, I could have probably leaned in more.
Yeah.
The bulk that I picked up would have been from conversations with my ex-in-laws and with neighbours, because I didn't kind of go out of my way to formally do a course whilst I was there. That could have been an option, but it was difficult to justify the expense or find the time. So it was mostly just, in practical terms, talking with people, talking badly, but talking enough that eventually you pick up enough and you can communicate.
I mean, to me, personally, that's my favourite way of learning a language as well. Like, just immersion.
Effective, yeah.
When you're immersing yourself deeply into a language and a culture, like, yeah. And then, how long was it before? Because your business did start up again. Karolina Laskowska, the lingerie brand, became a Norwegian brand for a while.
Yeah. So essentially, it's very, very difficult to get into the Norwegian system. It took me literally years. And part of that process meant I had to get a day job in Norway. And I managed to get a short contract doing costumes at the National Opera House there. And that was enough to kind of get my foot in the door with a lot of the Norwegian bureaucracy. But I didn't have the best time working there. And once that contract was up, I had no interest in going back. But I needed to find work. And it was very quickly that I realised Norway has no lingerie industry. It's not that it's a small industry. There is nothing there. And the fashion industry there is very, very limited. And again, very, very closed off to outsiders. I was searching for jobs. I was applying for jobs. And I think this is in part a phenomenon due to my name, which is very, very, very Polish on paper. And there is, I think, a bit of a phobia towards Eastern Europeans in a lot of Western European countries. I think people were seeing my name and they just would not reply. This is an experience that quite a few of my friends who also have Eastern European names have also experienced. So
Yeah.
it was a thing that you start off questioning of, oh, this must be a coincidence. It happens enough time. You're like, oh, it's not a coincidence. This is how things are done here.
Yeah.
And it's very, very disheartening. But after kind of enough time, you know, finances were getting dire. I was supporting myself. We were splitting living costs 50-50 despite the vast disparity in incomes. And that's when I decided I have to go back to the lingerie. I know how to do that. I know it will bring in some money. Mm. So it was more out of necessity than, you know, it being my first choice for making a living, because running a business out of Norway is really, really hard. And going into that, I knew it would be hard, but nothing could have prepared me for how bad it really was.
I mean, you have talked about this in many social posts online, but for those who potentially are new to your journey, can you describe a little bit of like just how hard it is? Because, I mean, it wasn't even just not having a lingerie business community industry around you to support you. There were so many other like financial obstacles in the way for you as well, weren't there?
Right, yeah. So under Norwegian tax laws, you know, even a tiny micro business basically has some of the same responsibilities as a big corporation, and the cost of accounting there is insane. Like, there's no other way to put it. My tiny little business with my tiny little salary, which was well below a living wage in Norway, I was paying about £1,000 a month in accounting costs.
I remember you telling me this, and me just my jaw hit the floor at how expensive your accounting fees were.
And you know, I remember there were so many times Norwegians would hear this and like, that can't be correct, that can't be correct, and then they'd sit down and they'd look at the numbers and then, oh no, it is correct. Because also it's a hard customs border with the rest of Europe, and that means that anything going in or out, the paperwork is beyond ridiculous, and it's really, really expensive. Just there's no kind of regulations kind of stopping the companies that do the processing from charging an arm and a leg. So there were instances where I had a shipment come in where, say, and postage of course was very, very expensive. You know, I'd paid about £100 for postage, and then the customs bill comes, and not the tax, just the processing charge would be about £200.
Well, yeah, because there were points, I remember, I think it was a birthday, and a lot of us at the Underpinnings team said that we were going to treat you to a birthday present, and I remember you saying, please don't send me anything that is sent by physical mail, because it will cost me so much money just to accept the present.
Yeah, essentially. I think it was because you wanted to send me some sweet treats or something.
I can't remember what we were sending you. Yep, it wasn't worth the admin fee.
Just the processing charge before any taxes would have been paid would have been about 30 quid on that, even as a gift.
Yeah.
It was just, yeah. And then, of course, all of the logistical costs, postage out of the country was incredibly expensive. I had no domestic market because Norwegian people do not care, as a general rule, about beautiful lingerie. I think in 10 years of business, I had maybe 2 Norwegian customers, and one of them was my ex-mother-in-law, God bless her soul. You know, she was one of my biggest supporters, but that's not enough to sustain a business.
So, I mean, clearly you got on well with ex-mother-in-law, but like eventually this relationship did start to break down for you, didn't it?
It did.
What was it like being in a situation like this in a foreign country when your support circle is still, majoritively speaking, back in the UK?
It was really, really hard, and I think I was both aware of what was happening and kind of in denial about it because I knew it was completely out of my control to do anything about it. I was, for all intents and purposes, financially trapped there. I had been put in a position for years where I was unable to rebuild any kind of savings or financial safety net. And I was constantly just clawing to the end of each month, trying to make ends meet. My ex-partner was not in that position, and he would watch me in that position, and that's all he would do. And that was so painful and so difficult. And yeah, hence the denial, because I think you need to tell yourself lies to get through a situation that is that difficult, because otherwise how do you survive?
There is so much to be said for survival instinct in this, and I think, you know, for anyone on the outside, it's so different when you're looking in on something and saying, well, if I was in this situation, I'd do X or Y. But when you're in it, it's a whole different level of emotions and safety and, you know, all the other practicalities that come from this. Isn't just a, well, you know, I would do this. There's an entire livelihood around this to support yourself with.
That's the other thing, because I do distinctly remember sleepless nights where I would be like, how, if I was going to get out of this situation, if I really wanted to, how would I do it? And I couldn't figure a way out that wouldn't be, you know, that wouldn't play out exactly as it did in the end, because it played out. I count myself lucky to have survived those last months in that country.
Who was there for you? I know you have a very supportive family. I know there is so many, you know, even coming back here, there are so many people that try and surround you with as much as they could. What were some of the smaller gestures of support that had the biggest impact for you in that situation?
From people at a distance or people there in Norway?
Both, whichever you feel inclined to answer, or either or.
I had a very small kind of support system in Norway. It was a small social circle, but they were people that did show up for me, that would just come over and talk, and we would sit and drink our gin and tonics until like 1 a.m. lamenting the state of the world. And it just having that human connection at such a difficult time really, really meant a lot. I think the biggest thing that my friends at a distance did for me, that still it was a hard thing to accept, but it really, really touched me, and it made such a huge, like, practical logistical difference. As I had a couple of friends who set up a GoFundMe, and it's a really difficult thing to accept that kind of help when you've been so independent for so long. But that help is really what allowed me to both get out and get back on my feet as quickly as I did. And I'm incredibly grateful for that. And I don't know what I would have done without it, because the money wasn't there.
Do you think it changed your perspective on what community meant to you at that point?
Not necessarily, in the sense of I would do the same for my friends.
Yeah.
And I would do everything I could from a distance for my friends. But it was a very different thing to be on the other side of it and accepting it. That was hard. and to have it took some lectures from some close friends to be like, stop being so proud, like just take the help.
You will accept this.
We've been watching you struggling for this long, now we can do something, just let us.
It is I've struggled a lot over my own self over the years, asking for help as someone who prides himself on being fiercely independent. It's hard. I can't even put into words how that feels, but it is like accepting help sometimes can in itself just be one of the hardest things to overcome, right? But having that fund, that GoFundMe, what did that enable for you? Like from that point, how were you able to move forward?
I mean, I think one of the biggest difference it made is it helped me afford the deposit for my studio space. And it meant I could get back to work as quickly as I did, because my job needs space and equipment. It's not something that can just materialize out of nowhere. It had a lot of practical considerations that needed to be pulled together. And the rental market in London is categorically insane.
Hard agree.
Yeah. And I got so lucky to find the space that I did. And I know that if it hadn't have been the kind of speed I was able to move there, I wouldn't have got it, and I'd be really struggling to find a place to work.
So remind me, when did you come back to the UK?
Kind of around mid-April.
2025.
Yes.
Yeah. I was literally just thinking then, has it been 2 years? And I've completely forgotten. I was like, no, it definitely was last year. So setting up again, putting Norway behind you, coming back. I mean, I say putting it behind you, because I know a lot of this followed you for a significant period of time.
I'm still having to file my taxes in Norway this year. So people are asking me, when are you finally cutting ties? The answer is August.
When my tax return goes through.
Yeah.
How has moving back been?
It's been a balance. Hard, but good. It's been really hard to come to terms with kind of the grief of basically losing a decade of my life, and I know people say, oh, but think of the things you learned and all of this. And I don't feel like I have a whole lot of positivity to take away from it. It is just a sense of loss. I'm not dwelling over it, and it's not defining me, but it does just feel like time lost. And that just makes me sad. Because again, it's that knowledge of all of that lost potential. I know for a fact there are so many amazing opportunities I turned down to be with a person that ultimately caused me a lot of harm.
Yeah.
And there's no way I can kind of balance that out, really. But at the same time, finally having, being back amongst family, being back amongst friends, being back in a culture I feel part of and welcome in, to be back in a community, to be back with colleagues, to be able to collaborate again, work with people who are, so passionately creative. It's been kind of healing for the soul in a way that I knew would happen, but I wasn't prepared for how much of a difference it would make.
What were some of the things that you prioritized when you came back? Was it connections with people? I mean, I know one of the things was going out for meals, because going out in Norway is, anywhere in sort of the Nordics, really, going out is expensive.
That's the thing. For me, like, it has been such a joy to just, to go to a cafe and have a little muffin or a smoothie. And I'm like, I still have money left over for the week. This isn't all of my, rainy day funds blown on a single little snack.
Yeah.
And it's been so lovely to be able to do that with friends, like going for pancakes or, going.
Pancakes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm just remembering those pancakes. Yeah. Yeah.
They're good pancakes. And not just that, but I did not like the food in Norway. I think they have some incredible high-end cuisine there, but on a day-to-day basis, I really missed food in the UK. And I know kind of on an international level, Britain gets a pretty bad rap for food.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've never understood why, because until you go somewhere where there is really no choice, really limited fresh produce, and it's all so incredibly expensive, it makes you grateful for what there is here. Oh my God, M&S. I missed M&S.
What is that meal that when you think about being home again, like what is it that you're rooting for?
I really missed Sunday roasts, and my dad does a really amazing pork with crackling.
Do you know, when I travel, and like sometimes I can be away for like a couple of months.
Roast potatoes.
Roast dinner is the one I miss. Like it's always, the first time I'm out, like you've got the travel sads. I mean, maybe not so much in your case, but like on a generic holiday, I come back and I'm like, I want a roast dinner. Just take me to the local. I want the nearest good local pub, diner, whatever. Yeah, give me the roasties. Give me a Yorkshire pudding. Yeah. How has it been resetting up the business? Because we are back with a UK website and we've got it's all happening again. I mean, does it feel like it's being set up for the third time? Does it feel like
it, legally speaking, it has been?
Yeah.
It's possibly been the worst possible time I could have reopened a business, because at the end of 2024, the EU brought in this new regulation called the General Product Safety Regulation, which sounds fantastic in theory, but the kind of bureaucratic and documentation requirements are impossible for my kind of business to follow.
Yeah.
Because one of my big things is I work with a lot of dead stock materials. I dye things a lot myself. And I cannot, and also I self-produce. I don't have an accredited factory. It's me with the sewing machine. And I cannot produce the kind of documentation required to fulfill being able to export to the EU now. And I know that this regulation was brought in to kind of curb dangerous products coming in from companies like Temu and Shein, which again, great in theory, and I support that, but the way it's been brought in without any consideration for small business has been jarring.
I completely agree with you, because on the surface level, I fully agree that this exists. For me, I again am one person, and I'm a service based more than product primarily, but having to have a permanent person residing, representing the business within the actual sort of EU mainland as well has been, having to pay someone to be that person prices me out as well.
I would have found ways to deal with that. That could have been a cost of business, but breaking it down to the documentation requirements with the bit I couldn't fulfill, can't fulfill. And because it has to be done for every single product variant, I do really small production runs and really limited. I cannot be investing hundreds of pounds in documentation and registration for every tiny product run for just the off chance that someone in the EU will buy it, because they will still be paying all the taxes, and that will, it's one of those things that as a business owner, I'm very sad to have to cut off the EU, but it's just not worth it. I as one person, I can't take that on. That's sad. And then America, which came to represent about 95% of my customer base from Norway, brought in tariffs. Yeah, that's been great.
And continues to be a hot topic even to this day. Yes.
So I lost most of my main market very, very quickly, which is not really what you want when you relaunch. And I was, so hopeful, because the collection I relaunched with Bijou, which you photographed beautifully.
I love that collection.
I had quite a good range of products in stock. I still do a lot that's made to order, but I had a good amount of stock and a good size range across so many different product ranges. And I was like, right, people can buy this immediately. Hopefully this will fly off the shelves. Nope, it's just been dead, which is, a shame, but it's kind of made me reevaluate where I want my business to go. Because interestingly enough, the ready to wear hasn't been moving. but the ultra luxury custom one of a kind pieces, there is so much demand for that I can't take on all the clients that contact me,
Which is incredible.
Great.
Yeah.
But I'm now in that process of having to really pivot and deal with the disappointment of things not working out as I'd hoped.
So it's not even just rewriting your own personal user manual, but I guess at this point you're also rewriting the business one as
absolutely.
well. That's a whole lot of change.
It is.
Do you deal with change well, generally speaking?
No. I like things as they are. I like my routine. I will deal with the change, but I'm really going to complain about it.
That's fine. My WhatsApp is open at any hour for you. What are some personal ways that you might deal with that change, I suppose, is the best. What have you been leaning into to support yourself while you're in this real transition period again?
Do you mean like emotionally support or financially support?
Emotional, financial, whatever, however you feel that question lands.
Just taking a moment to calibrate.
Possibly more emotional, I would say.
Yeah. I think primarily because I don't feel right now, I'm in a very, very lucky position that I am not worried about keeping a roof over my head right now. And that gives more breathing space. And it means I can take time for myself to enjoy life again. And I think that makes a really big difference and is not something I necessarily had in my previous life overseas. So just the ability to, spend time with friends again, go out for meals, embrace some of my hobbies again. Like I have my old piano back and it's been really nice. Just, I'm not going to play for anyone else. I'm not doing anything to reach a particular goal, but just playing again for myself and having that satisfaction of enjoying it for myself has been really lovely, especially after so many years away from it.
What do you play for yourself? Is it very classical?
Yeah, it's very classical. Yeah, there's Beethoven and Chopin and Mozart. Yeah.
Do you know what this is like? I'm learning something new about you today. I didn't even know you played the piano. Did you study it?
I hadn't for a very, very long time.
I guess this is true, right? You haven't had access to piano. When did you pick up the piano? Is this like a childhood?
As a child, yeah.
Did you do grades or just for fun? Or
I think I got up to grade 7, and then I was going to skip grade 8 and do a diploma at a college, but then I dropped out of that. I was in sixth form and I just didn't. I've never been good enough with music for me to see it as like a legitimate career option. It was just something that I enjoyed, and it was that moment of like this. Something has to give. I can't. This is not going to be my life.
Yeah, but I love that it's still in that pocket of playfulness, fun, enjoyment for you. That it's one of those things that you've picked up instantly. What else is sitting in the playful, safe, reconnecting with yourself box since you've been back? You've been doing quite a lot of personal projects with some corsets, haven't you?
I have. That's been really lovely, is being able to take time for my own personal creative projects. Like my main income is actually from a platform called Patreon. And having that means that I can justify going off on my weird tangents of new projects because I can share it with people there, and I'll still have an income going.
Yeah.
And that's been a really wonderful thing. And one of the things I've been really, really enjoying recently is is experimenting with masculine corsetry.
Yes.
I have a surprisingly willing, and I'm very grateful for that, new partner who has been my mannequin for all intents and purposes, because I'd wanted to experiment with masculine corsetry for a long time, but it's not something I could risk taking on a client for and trying to figure things out. That's not an experience I'd want to give a paying client. And it's been a really wonderful thing to have that kind of opportunity for self-directed learning and experimentation, and to have someone who supports that so enthusiastically and with so much excitement it's been such a joy. And I'm not, I'll be like in my technical nerding world and like, the differences in like construction and patterning, the difference in materials. It's so fascinating and exciting for me to uncover that in really, really practical terms. And again, to have someone who is enjoying it and wants to be there.
Yeah. Your face just has absolutely lit up at this moment. It's just nice to see. It's nice to see you so happy. And
it's nice to be happy again.
Right?
I'd forgotten that it's a nice thing to be.
How has it been for you? You've had a solid 8 years of not being your most happy self.
No.
How has it been to find someone that reminds you of how great it can be?
Strange, and it took a little while to trust it.
For sure.
And there still is that kind of little voice at the back of my head being like, are you sure? Can you trust your own feelings? There's been a lot of that. I think learning to trust myself again more than anything. It is the ground going to give out from under me in some way, and I have to recalibrate again very, very quickly. And kind of learning that a relationship doesn't have to be like that. It can be safe and secure and supportive. Is really nice.
I'm so happy for you. It's so nice to see you so happy, honestly. Do you think being in a safe relationship has changed your perspective on maybe the meaning or definition of love? Or
I'm not sure.
Ask again later?
Yeah. I think love can come in a lot of different forms. And I think one of the biggest lessons I've taken away from the last years is that you shouldn't rely on one person for everything. And I never wanted to be in that position, but I felt I was kind of cornered into it. And that may have been what caused the demise of that relationship, was all of that isolation leading to that reliance. And I'm very grateful not to be in that position now.
You've said to me previously that you're finally in a place where you feel for the first time you have the space to ask for what you want and to explore who you are. What are you just discovering about yourself?
It's been a bit of a difficult thing to process in my head that this is happening in my mid-30s, but I spent a long time assuming I was asexual. And that, I would go along with things to make my partners happy, but I was never really present or enjoying it really actively. And I've discovered that actually what I need is to feel safe and to feel secure, because I didn't have that before at any point in my life in a previous relationship, I think. And yeah, that's been a difficult thing to process, but a really wonderful thing to process.
I mean, it's an incredible thing to have in the version 2.0 of the manual, right? What else do you think might be making it into the cut? Are there any other things that you've learned about yourself in the last sort of 8 months or so, I suppose, since being back?
Yeah, I've learned that not being stressed all the time means I don't have to be sick all the time. That's been great. Yeah, because that was my life in Norway. Like every few months, I'd end up in an ambulance or I'd end up in the doctor's, and that something bad would happen. And then it would be the stress of unpaid time off work and trying to scrabble back. And yeah, great not having that.
Oh my gosh, was it? You're gonna have to remind me. I feel like
it's been a whole year since I was last in an ambulance.
I mean, that deserves take. It's nothing else. Am I right in thinking you caught pneumonia multiple times in 1 year during? Was it? Am I?
I don't think it was multiple times in 1 year, but I
just didn't catch
multiple times pneumonia multiple times whilst I was in Norway, and I just I think my immune system was just so depleted that anything that reached me hit really, really hard. And I never, ever like had enough time off to fully recover from anything.
Yeah. But I mean, one of the many reasons that I'm so glad that you're back. And a long list of reasons why I'm so grateful that I get to see so much more of you. What does becoming your own priority now look like in practice for you? How are you making sure that you're not stressed? How are you making sure that you're showing up for yourself, making time for that piano joy?
I am still stressed.
That's okay.
I don't think I will ever not be stressed. I think this is just how I operate. But it's a different level of it, because stress here tends to be, there's a lot done, there's a lot on my shoulders, but I'll get through it. There's ways through it. I can ask for help. There's solutions. Whereas stress when I lived in Norway was, oh my God, I don't know what I can do because there's no one I can ask for help. The system is broken here and I see no way out. And those are very different flavors of stress. One is kind of crushing despair. The other is just, there's stuff to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine they feel incredibly different on your nervous system as well.
Yeah.
If there's anyone listening to this who maybe resonates with you at some point, I mean, let's go back maybe to about a year and a half, 2 years ago. For someone who is, looking to reclaim themselves, to find their way home to themselves, what is the one thing that you would love to say to that person right now?
Trust your reality and trust your gut.
Such excellent advice.
Even when a person you trust is trying to pull you away from that.
Yep.
I say that with relative ease. It's a really difficult thing to do in the moment. Yep. But I think this is why having a support system and having a community is so, so important. Because it was my very limited community in Norway. It took someone there being the one to disrupt that, be like, no, that's not what happened. I was there. And for me to go, oh, I did experience reality as it happened, not as a person said it happened. And there was a witness, and I can trust the witness even if I can't trust myself.
I am so grateful that you have shared this. I think what you have been through is just such a testament to who you are and how strong you are as a person, even at times when you haven't necessarily always felt the strongest. I know that there will be people out there that needed to hear this. And so I just, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for putting yourself in a position where you could share that with people.
Are you okay? Do you want to take a break?
No, I'm actually fine. I am actually really emotional about it because I know, being in a privileged position also to have supported you as in ways that I can as a friend. It just means the world to me that you're back and to see you thriving and creating again and just happy. So yeah, I am really emotional about it, but I think it's important to show that this is, my God, I'm actually really emotional. I think it's just really important to show that this is what community means, right? Like it's showing up for your friends and making sure that they get back safe, and that someone out there is going to need to hear this. So thank you for sharing it. Oh my God, I didn't think I'd ever cry on this podcast. You're the first person to make that happen. That. I love you to pieces. Well, we've got our first crying episode.
No.
But no, I genuinely appreciate it. And look, if you're watching this with my tear-streaked face on YouTube right now, just know that there is someone out there that this is absolutely going to resonate with. And please make sure that they find this if they need it. And both of us are wildly chronically online, so you can reach out to either of us either. Where do people find you while I clear up my tears?
All the platforms. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. Email is probably the best place to generally reach me.
And Patreon, of course.
Patreon is where I post the most, to be honest. I am a little bit avoidant on social media these days just because no one sees anything. The joys of the algorithms.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I love the Patreon platform, is everyone who's there gets to see everything you do without any kind of barriers in the way, and they can engage with it if they want. They don't have to, but it's a much more pleasant community to have.
Well, please do reach out. And again, if you have been affected by anything we've talked about today, there have been some pretty heavy topics in here. I will pop some useful links and contacts below, as well as all of the places that you can find Karolina online. Please remember, you're never broken. You're just finding your user manual. And I'll be back next week with another episode.